In today's episode of Backpacker Radio presented by The Trek, we are joined by Rachel Rabbit Delano. Rabbit is a Triple Crowner, yogi, trail junkie, and currently in an ongoing battle with the Colorado Trail. We learn about how the discovery of thru hiking was a true fork in the road for Rachel, as the other path was leading toward a very dark place. And much like our episode with Second Chance, for those who are triggered by talks of suicide, we encourage you to skip to about 15 minutes into the interview. We talk about the highs and lows of each of Rachel's Triple Crown hikes. We learn which yoga poses she most recommends for hikers and backpackers, and why the Colorado Trail keeps kicking her ass. We wrap the show with a discussion on why backcountry campfires might need to become a thing of the past, at least in the West. We do a triple crown of things that ruin a day hike, and introduce a new segment, Hiker Trash Board Confessionals. But first, Organifi is a line of organic superfood blends that offer plant-based nutrition with high-quality ingredients. You've heard myself and the Real Hiking Viking talk about the importance of using a green superfood powder during our 100-day thru hike of the PCT. Organifi chooses the highest quality plant-based ingredients for optimal health, with each blend using organic ingredients aimed at helping you feel and perform your best. The Organifi Green Juice includes 11 superfoods to serve as backpacking nutritional insurance while you're on the trail, because carrying vegetables on trail is somewhere at the intersection of rare and batshit crazy. Some of the ingredients in the green juice include moringa, ashwagandha, which is a supplement I love and use regularly to manage stress, chlorella, spirulina, and wheatgrass, just to name a few. In addition to the green powder, Organifi offers a slew of other healthy drink powders, including the red juice with beets, berries, and cordyceps, the Organifi Gold, which includes reishi mushroom, turmeric, and ginger, and Organifi Pure, which contains neurofactor, lion's mane, and baobab. The best part of all of these products is that they're perfect for backpacking, coming in individual single serving size packets that do not require refrigeration. Just rip it open, pour the packet into your water, shake, and feel amazing. It's that simple. Organifi's green juice and Pure have been staples every morning for me during my travels and acts as nutritional insurance when I'm otherwise eating like a raccoon. And it's especially important when I'm exerting myself day in and day out. Discount time, Backpacker Radio listeners go to Organifi.com/backpacker to receive 20% off your order. That's Organifi, Organifi.com/backpacker, and use code BACKPACKER at checkout for 20% off your purchase. If you've done any amount of research on which gear is best for long-distance backpacking, you are already familiar with our next sponsor. Enlighten Equipment specializes in manufacturing ultralight and minimalist gear that performs. From quilts and 8-ounce synthetic jackets to ultralight rain gear and wind pants, Enlighten Equipment offers a wide range of gear and apparel suited for anything the trail can throw your way. Based in the rolling bluffs of Winona, Minnesota, say that 5 times fast, Enlighten Equipment is a tried and true ultralight favorite for Triple Crowners, weekend warriors, and everyone in between. The name Enlighten Equipment is probably already familiar to you because it's been cited as the most used brand of sleeping bag or quilt from our most recent AT Thru Hiker survey. Its popularity is not just confined to the Appalachians, as it's a thru hiker favorite across all trails. They make a top quality product at a very fair price. I've used an Enlighten Equipment quilt for many years and can personally attest that it's kept me warm on cold nights while keeping my pack load light. Now, this is the part you have been waiting for. Our friends at Enlighten Equipment are offering listeners of Backpacker Radio the rare 10% discount off Enlighten Equipment's best-selling stock Revelation quilt or tour jacket by using code TREK10 at checkout. That's Trek plus the number 10, no spaces, at checkout at enlightenequipment.com. This is a limited time code, so if you're in the market for a quilt and or synthetic jacket, do not sleep on this deal. welcome to Backpacker Radio presented by The Trek. I'm your co-host, Zach Badger Davis, and I have a southern draw today for some reason. Sitting across from me is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
Question of the day. I feel like we get so off topic so often here at Backpacker Radio. Let's talk about hiking, backpacking. What are your upcoming backpacking plans? Because I know that they've evolved. Like the last time I talked to you was I learned something.
Yes. I'm not sure what you learned that time, but I can tell my upcoming, like next week is what you learned, or did you learn something different?
That was, I think, the one that stood out to me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going to be finishing the Colorado Trail next week. Thank God. It's been since 2018 that I've been section hiking this trail. I
fucking told you, do not attempt to section hike it.
I know, I hate
myself. It is a nightmare.
I hate myself. But... Fireball, a.k.a. Mims, from the Girl Stuff episode, she is going... Well, she's on the Colorado Trail right now. But she's going to be at the spot I left off at this weekend. So I took off next week. I'm going to meet her on trail, and we are going to do 75 miles and finish in Durango together. And then we have a girls' backpacking trip with a few of our friends outside of Silverton the next weekend.
Sweet.
Yeah. And Harper's coming.
That wasn't the end, but that's also very good information.
What's the end?
You have more backpacking plans, too.
Yeah, but I don't want to jinx any of them.
Okay.
Because fires, you know.
That's true. I'm going to talk about mine now, and because of it, and also just, the trajectory of things,
one thing at a time for me.
But yeah, I think I'm going to finally knock off the Tahoe Rim Trail this year. I'm looking at the first... I don't want to give exact dates. I'm going to look at late this summer for doing that trail. I've professed my love for loop trails. I love the simplicity of not having to plan logistics. You're talking about doing sections of the Colorado Trail, and that is a living nightmare. And I've just been drawn to walking in a giant circle. So happy to revisit my tracks on the PCT and do a hike that I've been talking about for, I think, 4 years now. So good to finally knock it off.
Yes, and fortunately for you, late in the summer is definitely nowhere close to fire season.
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen. But we've already booked a house at Lake Tahoe, so maybe I'll just go sit in the Inferno for a few days afterward regardless. Reminders, of course. We'll get to the obvious one in a second. But hopefully this comes out in time. If you're hearing it after the fact, I apologize. And really, this is only going to appeal to a certain geographical audience anyways. But we're doing another hiker meetup. It's been off for 17 months, I think, according to my calculator.
The fact that we could take a 17-month hiatus and still be here is actually kind of wild.
You mean like just still be alive?
Podcasting. No, not that bleak, but just like podcasting.
Yeah, sure. And the fact that we were able to maintain through the remote recording, I know I've been vocal about my disdain for that, but we're back to in-person, and you'll hear an interview in person in 1 second. But yeah, hiker meetup. It's in Golden, Colorado, July 26th. I think this will be out in time. If you're listening to it late, just skip forward 3 seconds, because we're going to talk about the next reminder, which is the Wisconsin road trip. Obviously, you guys know about this by now if you've listened to any of the last 6 podcasts, I'd say. But we're starting to get some more details locked in, and I want to talk about the hiker meetup that we're doing. We have a date that is October 13th, Wednesday, and we have a location that is in Delafield, Wisconsin, at the Delafield Brew House. I think the start time will be around 6 or 6:30. Haven't officially locked that part down yet, but we have a place, we have a location. We want to see you there. If you're in the Midwest, if you're in the Milwaukee area, hell, if you're anywhere in the Midwest, we would love to see you. Come hang out with me, Chaunce, and Elise.
Yee.
Okay, let's get to our interview.
Okay.
She is, I could read this entire thing, but I just feel like she's my pal from the PCT. She's Rabbit. Can we just do that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll go through the resume in a second, but I would say Rabbit is one of the few people that I've actually done backpacking with on the show. Jabba's obviously, I've done many miles with Jabba. Chaunce doesn't count.
Okay.
I mean, we through hiked together, so I guess that was a very formative experience in our.
We flew in a helicopter together.
That's true. That's true. Forgot about the helicopter.
How could you?
Yeah. So I guess let's do the requisite question. Let's start with the backpacking resume.
So that starts with 2016, I through hiked the Appalachian Trail. 2017, I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. 2018, I through hiked the Continental Divide Trail. 2019, I soboed Washington on the PCT. I noboed Virginia on the AT again, so little sections, and then I hiked Hadrian's Wall in England. And then I came back and attempted an FKT on the Colorado Trail, which was unsuccessful. I tried again. It was still unsuccessful. And then last year, I did some sections of the Colorado Trail, being quarantine year. They were non-resupply sections that I just kind of went out. Since I live here in Golden, I was able to knock off sections while staying in the quarantine bubble and like not talking to people or breathing near anyone.
Yeah. And some of you listening might recognize that voice for a variety of reasons, not least of which is Rachel was one of our trail correspondents that was the CDT 2018.
Yes.
Yeah. So you got to live through her journey that year. Was that the first season of Trail Correspondence?
Yes. It was when it was still on Backpacker Radio,
Yes.
not its own podcast.
So not your first time on Backpacker Radio, but your first time in the room of cinnamon.
Correct.
Well,
A little bit of pepper to spice things up.
paprika, not pepper.
Well, Rachel's the pepper.
Okay, I get it. Yes.
So, the obvious thing to me here is I would say that you're sort of a late comer to the backpacking world, but a very violent entrance in that, like, once you've found the trail, you haven't left.
So did you just call me old on
What
a
was that? What did that
podcast?
mean?
Did I say old?
You said a late comer to the backpacking world.
I mean,
but you started in 2016, which is 5 years ago.
I am
I
just.
feel
I'm
like
just
if your
kidding.
backpacking career is 5 years old, that's not that long ago.
Yes. I
mean,
was just giving you a hard time. I was just throwing
It did sound like you were calling her old.
Oh, a latecomer. Is a latecomer a synonym for old? I don't think it is.
Well, it means like she waited a long time before she started.
Yeah, I stand by that.
I mean, how old do you have to be to wait a long time?
I'm saying that her entry into the world of backpacking is recent relative to many of our guests,
Oh, okay, sure.
but still profound nonetheless. So, yeah, let's talk about the evolution of how you discovered backpacking.
Yes, and you are correct, Zach. It did take me a long time in my life to find backpacking. I was not one of those
You're
people.
what, like 65, 75 years old?
Close, I'm 80.
Okay.
81 in March.
Okay, nice.
I had not grown up backpacking. I had not grown up in the outdoors or anything even remotely like that. Like you said, then when I started, I went hard. One of the biggest lies I told people when I started the AT was that I had actually backpacked or camped before. Because people were like, how long have you been camping? And I'd be like, years. And the answer was like 45 minutes. And so I found it actually through a coworker of mine. When I first got out of college, I had a coworker, and she had this picture on her desk of herself like crying on top of a sign. And that's not normal, right? Like, just an average person, you're like, what is the sign? Why are you crying? I have questions.
Was it relative buried here?
Yeah, like, it was very odd looking. And then, lo and behold, that's Katahdin. So she had summoned to Katahdin. It was her Katahdin photo, and she kept it on her desk to remind herself of her thru hike every single day. And she just had the best personality. She was super chill. I remember at one point, she lost her job. She got fired. And then I called her like, oh, no. And she was like, eh.
This means I get to go walking again.
Yeah, like I was going to hike, or I'll just find another job. Who cares?
Yeah.
It was so chill, and I just love that energy. And she kind of taught me all about the Appalachian Trail and really like the energy and how she used to be this super stressed out person, and then she did it, and it changed her whole life and her outlook on life. And that stuck with me super hard. So I was in my early 20s then, and I never forgot. And I kind of like just stuck it in the back of my brain, like I'm gonna do that one day. And then actually, unfortunately, she passed away. And then my life took some really hard turns, like a lot of people does, like, encounter before they go on hikes. I went through a really super hard time where, to be perfectly honest, I hated my life. I was living in New York City. I was working a very successful job. If you looked at everything from the outside, it was like good, 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 good. I'm sure my parents were like, she's awesome. And I was like, I don't like any of this, and I need a major, major change. So I gave it all up.
Can you put your finger on what about your life was not satisfactory?
That faking it till you make it, but I wasn't making it towards anything I wanted. Like I constantly, whenever I got dressed, I felt like I was putting on someone else's clothes. Like I would get dressed up in my work clothes and just not like what I was doing or who I was. I didn't like the company that I worked for. I didn't care about any sort of the mission or anything about it. I would go out with my friends and everything felt superficial. Like I'd hang out and talk about the things you're supposed to care about with your girlfriends. And I was like, I don't care about any of this. And I would just keep trying. And I don't know, it's like, it's very hard to describe. And then my relationship that I'm still in now, but at the time it was suffering because whenever you're really unhappy, it's hard to be be happy with someone. And so all of that was really not going well. And I guess, and just mental health is a struggle for me to be, I don't know if we need trigger warnings for anyone, but I have depression and anxiety, and it was getting worse as I lived in a place that I felt like under pressure all the time to perform constantly. And it was getting really bad. I was in therapy, I was taking medicine, and it wasn't helping. Like I wasn't finding my happiness that people kept saying you could find if you do the work, and I was doing the work and I wasn't getting there. And I think Second Chance was on, and he talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
And about how important the work is, and it has to be the right work.
Yeah. And the response to his being so transparent about his mental health issues was some of the strongest we've seen on any episode. So I think it's a really important subject to cover. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. And I don't know, this is super revealing. So I kind of had that, only a few people in my life know this, but I had that moment where I was at my darkest, and I made the choice to hike instead of take that route.
So did you go straight from New York to the AT?
I did. I set up my tent in my inside my apartment. Luckily, it was a freestanding tent.
What was the time frame between being I am at the lowest to being at Amicalola or Springer?
January to March.
Oh, okay.
Or April, sorry, April. So I decided in January, right around, I think I decided on my birthday actually, which is January 16th. I kind of made that decision in my mind, and then I started the trail on April 16th. I flew in on the 15th and started the 16th.
And all you had seen at that point was a Katahdin photo?
Pretty much. I did do research at that point.
Yeah.
I bought all the books and did all the things. I remember running into Zach's book at one point when I was even on the trail, and I was like, what are those notes in the back? How do you do this?
Did you have a feeling that hiking would be your salvation, or were you just at such a low point that you were willing to try anything and that it just seemed like the biggest departure for you?
Oh, anything. I didn't even know if I'd finish. I didn't know how far I'd get. I barely knew what I was doing. I just knew I needed to go. It was so much more about leaving and starting. And I would say it was my first week on the trail where I realized that I loved backpacking. Most people fall in love with backpacking and then go on this big trip. I went on this big trip and then fell in love with backpacking.
Yeah. So you've been doing a major hike every year since you discovered backpacking. For a lot of people, and myself included, admittedly, by the time I reach the end of a hike, I'm ready for it to be fucking over. Do you experience that? Or are you just ready to string the next backpacking session? It's
a combo of the two. I didn't want the AT to end because I didn't know what I was going back to. So I was super scared. I was like, so I finished in October. I was like, I don't want to go back to what I did. And that was the catalyst that pushed me onto the PCT. I didn't know when I was finishing the AT that I would go. I actually did a short bike tour. If you're familiar, whenever you're walking near Harper's Ferry and you see all those bikes, that's the C&O Canal and the Gap Trail. It's a bike tour that goes from Pittsburgh to D.C. I did that after I got off the AT. I guess I left that out of the resume. I kind of forget because I didn't stop. So I kind of didn't stop backpacking until November of that year. I started in April, and I really didn't quit doing things till November. So yeah, that was part of it. Was I was like, oh, I'll do this biking trip. And then I was like, well, I should probably do something else. I remember just sitting in my apartment and being like, I'll just hike the PCT. I read Wild. I'm sure that's I should do next. And it's funny, people bash on Wild, but I was really just I read it while I was on the AT, and I was like, I don't know, seems like a good plan.
Yeah. So how was the experience of going back home after the AT? Were you expecting that to be challenging, or were you expecting it to be you're seeing it through new eyes and maybe I can readjust to the lifestyle that I once learned to loathe? Or did you know that it was going to be a challenging experience? Curious to get your take.
I mean, I knew it was going to be hard because I thought I was going to hike the AT and figure out what I wanted to do with my life.
I feel like people always think that. They're like, I'm going to figure things out on the trail, and then you just have fun, and like all of a sudden it's the end, and you're like, I was supposed to really ponder things at some point.
Right. I was like, I was supposed to have this deep experience, and I did, but I was like, at the end, I thought I would have in my mind, like, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to go back to school, or I'm going to get a job doing this, or I was going to have this idea, but when I finished, I realized all I wanted to do was backpack more.
I was going to say, that's usually the takeaway for people. That's the thing that they learn is like, you know what, I like walking.
Yeah, like that was it. So I think that was the simplest answer was what I found on the AT was I loved backpacking, and so I should keep doing it. And I did. And so I built my life around that, and I de-emphasized my jobs and I emphasized my hiking. So I made hiking the goal. I made it what I do for a long time now. If people ask me what I do, I tell them I'm a long distance backpacker. And they're like, how much money do you make? I'm like, absolutely nothing.
It's a volunteer job.
Zero sponsors, zero anything. I do have 3 other jobs that I do, but I rarely count them in the fold.
Uh-huh.
And so that's how I build my life. And whenever I take jobs now, they're seasonal jobs or positions, or I work for folks that are very cool with me taking long periods of time to leave and backpack.
We can disclose that and if you're cool with that.
What?
Rachel is helping to rear my child, so.
Oh, I figured that would be like a you thing.
Oh, yeah. No.
I left it up to the persons whose child it is.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No.
You looked at me like it was my place. I was like,
I first looked at Rachel, she wasn't making eye contact, so I just went with John's, but yeah.
Yeah. How fat is the baby's face? In all the pictures, it looks like the squishiest cheeks.
92nd percentile for weight, 52nd percentile for length.
Nice.
It's actually those
Certified
chunky
chode.
thighs.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like the big, like the turkey leg thighs.
Yeah.
I can't take how cute they are.
But
Side point. Side note.
nannying is a great gig for thru hiking, especially if you're looking for flexibility and that's your life.
Yeah, so I do that. I'm also an accountant and a yoga teacher. Yoga was something I actually found that supported me so much through my hikes. That did come from the hike. So I actually really did have an epiphany on the PCT that I loved yoga so much that when I got off, I did want to go into school and learn how to be a teacher to teach others. So that was something I did learn. So it's not impossible. You can do a hike and kind of figure out career goals, a life goal, like it just took me more like 5,000 miles instead of 2,000 miles to accomplish that.
2,200 miles is not enough. You got to do multiple years of backpacking. So I know you get a lot of interest about the yoga thing from other backpackers. Is this something that you're engaging with other backpackers when you're out on the trail? Like, do you do morning like what are the words? What are some yoga words?
Like a vinyasa flow.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I was going for.
I think you're also trying to say pranayama, which is breath work.
You're just combining all the things that like my brain knew, but I can't actually produce.
Yeah, that's how it started. That was what got me on the AT. I did that. I would just do yoga in shelters, and suddenly people started following along. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, guys. Like, I'm just kind of winging it here. And they would follow along and do what I did. And then that kind of happened on the PCT as well. I would do it, and people just kind of pick up. I wouldn't be like, hey, you need to do this, but they would follow along. And that was what sparked the idea in my mind. It was just that community of people that were like, we want to know how to do this too. So I thought I'll learn how to do it more properly.
Mm-hmm. And what does that process look like? How many hours or courses, or is there like a one rigid way that people go about getting certified as a yoga instructor?
There's the Yoga Alliance, and there's like rules, and then there's different programs. So most big studios that you know of will have a teaching program. Mm. And you can go into the teaching program and it's like a 250 hour or a 500 hour, and then they have different designations or specialties and stuff like that. But I got just a general like 250, started out and got certified. So I am the lowest level of teacher at this moment. Ideally, I'd like to change that in the near future. Go back to school. I was going to do it last year, but you know, and go back and learn. So I think it took me about 3 months to get certified total. Mm-hmm. And that's different. People have ones that you can do in like a month. I feel like it's kind of like learning to code or anything. There's like these really super intensive ones you can do really short. There's yoga programs that you can do in India that take a year, or, you know, different places. But I took more of the traditional westernized version. So a lot of the asanas, the movements were taught. But then we did spend segments on history of, all these different ones, because at its core, yoga is actually meditation.
Yeah, I was actually curious, how much of the education is the actual movement itself, which you alluded to? And I feel like every yoga class I've been to, there's a lot of talk about like building a fire in your thorax. Like there's a lot of metaphorical speak. Is that part of the education, or is that something that teachers bring just to like add a little mystique to the event?
It's definitely a large part of the teaching is like the origins of yoga. It's an ancient practice. And then, like I said, it starts out where yoga at its core is meditation. It's really the Western version that sees it as the movements, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like people hate on that, but there's nothing wrong with that. And so mine was, I would say we had kind of like 3 parts. One part was history, education, kind of like what you're talking. We were taught about chakras and all these different concepts. Then there was anatomy. So straight up anatomy. I'm looking at body parts, the whole thing. So we did a big segment on that. And then the third part of it was the actual movements, learning that. And then my school was unique. I was told, at least, that we had another segment every week that was just teaching, that taught you how to teach. So yeah, we can teach you all this stuff, and then you walk out there and you have no idea how to be present in front of a class. I'm sure everyone's taking yoga classes with teachers you really like, or ones that you might not like as much. My school was trying to encourage us to be the ones that people like. You could not be the best at this movement. Maybe you can't execute a split, but if you can teach others how to do it, that's fine. Like the importance of teaching, not, it only being about your personal practice.
Mm-hmm. Is it like pretty hard to learn and memorize all the different positions? Because I feel like I know downward dog, and I've been to a lot of yoga classes, and I can't remember the names of any of them, or even like
Cat cow.
There's like the happy tree one where you're like that and your legs up.
Oh yeah, I can't do that.
It's not called happy tree, but
it's called tree. Yeah.
And you're happy while doing it.
And if you're happy, then
sure.
Put that right.
But like,
in there.
do you have to like make flashcards and memorize them? And
yeah, my school was gave me a lot of grace, and I didn't have to learn all the Sanskrit. So every pose has a Sanskrit name, and I know a handful in my head, and I know them when I'm doing them, or if I have a teacher say the Sanskrit, it like triggers it in my mind, and I usually can follow along. But I have a mentor that I take class from, and every now and then she'll just say the Sanskrit, and I'll like pause, and she's like, right, and like say the actual word for it, and then my brain catches back up, and I keep going. And but yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's real school. I mean, I took a written test. I had a physical test, where I had to teach a class and be judged off of that. Obviously, I passed, and the judgment is relatively, nice. They're not like, "Ooh, you stumbled across your word. Fail for you.
Yeah.
No yoga for you."
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what are the core tenets of being a good teacher?
Man, I thought we were going to talk about hiking.
We will. We'll get there eventually. Or maybe
we're very
we won't.
good at tangents.
Yeah. So I think there's different ones, but part of it is creating and inviting in a safe space. So the very first thing when you walk into a class is you want people to feel welcome. You want them to know that they belong there, that this is their practice, and putting it kind of into the student and allowing them to make their own choices. So that way they don't feel pressured to push themselves beyond. This is not CrossFit. This is the workout. You have to do this. No, this is your time. If you come into my class and you get in a child's pose and you don't move for an hour, I will assume that you are fine and that is what you need. And I will not bother you.
Yeah.
That's my kind of hour of yoga.
I was going to say, I always love the part at the end where you just lay still for the 2 minutes.
Yes.
Like, I think I might go into yoga class and just lay down the whole time.
I've had those where you like lay there and they walk around with a little bell and they just like ring it in random spots and you're just like falling asleep.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. You can't lie. Has anyone ever farted in one of your classes? And if so, did you laugh?
Not in my class that I've taught. But most of mine that I've taught have been remote. So I'm sure they've just been silently just wafting away.
Their microphones are on mute.
But it has happened in classes that I've been in. And only once did I have a teacher stop and go, wow.
I feel like you have to address the elephant in the room. Otherwise, it just gets awkward. I feel like that's the way you clear the tension. Because I haven't done that many yoga classes, but I have been at a yoga class where there was a fart. And I can say with great honesty that it wasn't me, thank God.
Yeah, that would be mortifying.
Yeah.
We had that triple crown of worst places to fart, didn't we?
I think it was just embarrassing thing. Or no, it was worst places.
Yeah.
Because the elevator was on there.
Right,
that.
and like I picked silent things. I don't remember what I picked, but a yoga studio would be a bad
That'd
one.
be a really bad one.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a great way to like release gas is to get into downward dog and like lift and lower your heels. It will like help move your belly. So I feel like yoga classes are asking for it. You know what you sign up for.
So let's throw some particular ailments at you and see what yoga poses you recommend. Because that's actually something that I've used yoga for in the past. Is like if I'm having digestive issues, like cat cow is a good one to like the breathing.
Cat cow?
So you're transitioning between two different poses. I'll have Rachel explain it because I'm dumb.
You want to get on the table and demonstrate?
You go from cat to cow.
Okay. You go into your tabletop position, which is just on the ground on all fours. For your cat position, think of a scared cat. You lift your belly button up and in towards your spine, arching your back up. Head comes down, tailbone tucks under. Usually that's done on your exhale, so you're pulling the belly all the way in. And then on your inhale, you're dropping the belly, hips lift up, head lifts up. Your hands stay in the same position, but think of your shoulders and your chest opening, your hips opening. Take your inhale, and then go back and forth, transitioning through those two poses.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, that was well explained.
Yeah,
And-
that's basically how I explained it.
Okay, so we're going to go through ailments.
So let's start with digestion. Is there like a few go-to poses that you think are good? Like if you're backed up or your stomach's not feeling good, are there certain things that you might do to clear that up?
So, I mean, downward dog is definitely one of them, like lifting and lowering the heels and kind of allowing, because it changes the shape of your belly when you're in an inversion. So inversions can help or hurt, kind of. It's really what feels good to you. Laying down on your side, I'm pretty sure if I'm thinking correctly, you're on your right side, because a lot of times I think the gas pain is on your left, if I'm remembering correctly. So belly ailments, laying down on that right side and like tucking your legs up can sometimes just like ease it. That's not particularly a pose, but you can also change that by doing like twists. So if you lay on your back, pull your knees up to your chest, and then just gently send them to one side and turn your head the opposite way. Those recline twists can kind of help relax your belly if you move around. I think a lot of it is just relaxing if you feel really like tightened in your core.
Yeah.
I mean, other people I'm sure would recommend like hardcore core workouts to like push it through. For me, I think relaxing is a little more helpful, but I guess do you, if like those hardcore ab workouts are what get you going, then like do that.
Yeah. I guess we should go with the obvious question is, do you have like a series of go-to movements for hiking? Because like any endurance sport is just so repetitive that you're going to develop stiff muscles. And I'm sure there's a short list of injuries that are very common. I know that you've been dealing with some injuries yourself, which I'd like to talk about. But is there like a set of maybe 5 or so different stretches that you go through or advocate for other backpackers?
Forward folds are huge, just stretching out the backs of your legs. So that doesn't mean you need to touch your toes, doesn't mean you should keep your legs locked out. So like gentle bends in your knees, bending forward from your hips and letting your torso hang. So letting go of that tension and then just seeing how your legs feel as it pulls through your hamstrings. Usually that'll start to open up your lower back as well and through your glutes, because the glutes control so much of our legs. And for me, that also kind of helps open that. Then figure 4. So if you're, you probably did these like in elementary school. If you're standing, or you can do it on your back, you take your ankle and cross it over your knee, and you can take your right hand to your right knee and just like gently press it away. That'll open your hips up. And then you do that, of course, on each side. For me, that actually feels really good on my lower back, but other people say they only feel it in their hips. So everyone's a little unique. Those twists I find are super helpful for my back. I tend to go to back because that's where my problems are. And then I feel like child's pose, where you have your arms stretched out in front of you and you're on the ground, kneeling, and you lay your torso over the top of your legs and let your feet kind of like just rest against the ground. That, for me, I feel the stretch kind of through my upper body. And then if my back is bothering me, I'll tuck my arms back by my legs. And that's called seed pose. So you basically just turn yourself into a little seed pod and I'll pull myself into this tight little egg,
It sounds adorable.
It doesn't seem comfortable, but for me it is, because I just like kind of tighten up into that little ball and I feel like cozy and happy. Maybe it's mental too. I mean, a lot of this is mental. Taking a moment to stretch is sometimes going to help your mind, which will relax that and then get you out of, especially if you're like in a pain spiral, you're in your pain cave. Taking this time, even if it doesn't cure you, if it resets your brain, that can be as important as the movement.
What about like for people who have trouble falling asleep on trail? Are there specific movements you can do before bed that will make your body more ready for bedtime?
So the kind of like you were talking about the Savasana, laying down, there's two ways. I do this sometimes standing as well. So if you stand and you plant your feet on the earth and you ground yourself in and you really think about like taking your shoes off and standing on the actual earth, connecting all of your toes down, thinking of your heel touching, and then building that platform up. So then looking at your knees, having just like a gentle athletic bend in your knees, and then you're supported yourself through your feet, through your knees. Move your hips over your knees to where you feel stable, or spread your feet a little wider or closer together. Then you've built a platform all the way up to your hips. Then take a deep breath, inhale, and then just gaze forward and see where you fall. And then exhale and let your kind of torso sit down. And then I'll roll my shoulders back till my chest feels open. And then the same thing, take some neck rolls and just let my head kind of fall into place. And your body is going to find those natural rhythms, like where it wants to be. And so I do that standing a lot of times before I start my day. And then like the opposite of that is whenever you lay down, laying down, thinking about your feet, letting them sit at a comfortable position, letting them fall open or whatever feels good to you, and then relaxing from your toes, relaxing from your ankles, putting a little bend in your knees or sticking something you have from your pack under your knees to support yourself. Then building up the body again and relaxing every single one. And it can just be, it's really a meditation. This is a very common meditation, is relaxing every part of your body. And as you do it, inhaling and then exhaling the stress out of that muscle and just letting it go.
Is holotropic breath work part of the education for your specific yoga?
So no. I don't know exactly holotropic. Is that which one is that?
Psychedelic breathing.
Is it like Wim Hof?
It is not. I think that is like it's different to my understanding, but it's when you go very quickly in and out of your nose, and if you do it long enough, you induce a state, or you can induce a state of you hallucinate.
Yes. Okay. I would probably call that breath of fire. It's just different words for all the same stuff.
Sure.
So I have not taken a specific breathwork class. So that's why I said earlier, I have the lowest level of certification. Like I am the beginner of the teacher realm, but my mentor is not. She is a higher learned person. She has gone on and taking many more trainings and sessions. So she has been teaching me, not officially, like I won't walk away with a certification, but she does breath work with me and teaches me. And I've gently dabbled into one of my friends I've been doing with him. Under the premise of like, I only kind of know what I'm doing, but you and I are going to practice together till I get this. So I was taught that a little bit under Kundalini. We had a Kundalini specialist come in for a day as a guest speaker. So part of my education was also super awesome. We had guest speakers come in and touch on topics that maybe my trainers didn't know about specifically. So we did Kundalini one day, and I've taken some classes, but it is not something I am skilled in.
Yeah. And can you elaborate a little bit on Kundalini? Because I accidentally happened into one of those classes once. I was living in San Francisco, literally like a block from Haight-Ashbury, like the capital of hippiedom in the world. And I just went to the closest yoga class, and that's what they were doing that day was Kundalini breathing. And I think they were doing the holotropic breathing, and I didn't get to the point where I was seeing anything, but like you could tell there was a very intense physical state change. And maybe if I had just gone longer, I would have gotten to the place where I was getting attacked by dragons. But that was my first introduction to how powerful breathing is. Like that is legit.
Yes. I read a book that touched on this briefly. It's the Wheels of Life. So if you're more interested, the Wheels of Life is great. Actually, it goes through the chakras and touches on Kundalini energy. I am not an expert, so I hesitate, since it is something that people take so deeply, seriously and spiritually. I hesitate to talk on it too much.
Sure.
But yeah, it is. They're classes that are not. They don't look like a vinyasa class that you would take at a gym. Usually the postures, you're holding a specific posture, moving in a very specific way, and it has to do with this rapid fire breath that is igniting your Kundalini energy. Like I said, I will butcher it, so I don't want to. I don't want to say all the wrong things and then go back and reread.
Leave that to me.
Yeah.
I can do that for you.
So yeah, I don't think am the best person to comment on it. Had I had a primer to know I needed to talk on Kundalini, I definitely could have brought some books with me and brushed up. I thought we might talk about the CDT or something.
Nope.
Maybe the Colorado Trail. I'm going to do that in like a week or something. But we'll talk about Kundalini, which I've taken one class on.
Yeah, good.
Cool.
The breath thing is fascinating. Have you read James Nestor's book? I think it's just called Breath.
I haven't. It's on my list. It's like high on my list. So taking breathwork classes is something that I'm deeply interested in, but have not taken that journey yet. I did do the Wim Hof, which I think you did as well, and I felt similar. I think his approach is interesting because it allows people to tap into something without maybe the pressure of taking. I think people probably are intimidated. At least I was when I first thought about going to take just a breathwork class. It's kind of intimidating, but being able to have an app on your phone, I'm not like a yoga snob. I do anything that makes you do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Wim Hof gets a reputation for being very woo-woo, and maybe deservedly so. But if anyone's interested in this stuff, just Google Wim Hof guided breathing session. I think there's a bunch on YouTube. And I guarantee you, if you do 3 to 4 rounds of this, you will feel something. Like we did this we were up in Basalt recently, and we were hungover, and it was my friend's birthday, who's big into Wim Hof. Like, he went out to Spain to do a Wim Hof retreat, and for his birthday, we did like a whole Wim Hof morning. We went for a run, and then we did the breathing, did the cold showers separately. But it's actually amazing how you can go from waking up feeling like a bag of dicks to, after all of that, felt phenomenal, felt like better than you would getting out of bed in a given day. So it is a very real thing, and if anyone's interested, I recommend checking that out. Okay. I don't know if I'm quite ready to wrap on the yoga thing. Largely because we haven't had a yoga specialist, and I honestly forgot that was one of your fortes. So I hope I didn't cut you off prematurely when you were going through your flow for the recommended movements for backpackers.
Yeah, I mean, not particularly. Like I said, forward folds, anything that opens up your hamstrings, anything that you can do that focuses on your glutes. Like I said, I like the figure fours. I like doing a lot of just really basic bending, and I like anything I can do in my pack. And so this also involves stuff that maybe isn't quote unquote yoga, but if you like walk up to a tree, put your hands on the tree and step one leg back and stretch your calves out. For me, that can be a religious experience, especially if my calves are cramping. I made the silly mistake of going on a day hike over this past weekend here in Golden, where it was like 45,000 degrees outside, and I forgot electrolytes. I had chugged 3 liters of water for a 7-mile hike, assuming I'd be fine, but I'd forgotten to take any electrolytes or salt that day whatsoever. I'd had a smoothie and like a salad, so I had no sodium in my system and cramped up immediately. And started doing this stuff just to relieve the cramp so I could get off the mountain and get to the things that I need.
Yeah. It's taken me a long time to connect the dots on how important electrolytes and sodium are. I mean, I've learned it obviously in a hardcore way while through hiking, but just like in my day-to-day life, if I start the day with a protein shake, there's no sodium in it, and I do like a hard workout, I feel spacey until I actually replenish. I don't. Maybe this is placebo, but I feel like my brain's not firing properly until I've consumed enough sodium. I also sweat a lot, so maybe I'm just a weirdo. But there's definitely more meat on the yoga bone. Do you have anything?
When we were talking about the digestive issue stretches, would those be the same ones you would suggest if someone was trying to maybe poop on trail and they couldn't, do it?
Malasana yogi squat. It is kind of the pooping position. It is, you squat, butt down and heels out. I usually take you put your hands together in prayer and put your elbows inside your knees to kind of stretch them out. So that's really good for your hips, but it's also kind of getting you in that squatting position. So I would say if you cannot go, that is probably your best bet for opening. It's what do the people have where they stand on those things in front of their toilet or squat?
The squatty potties.
The squatty potties, yeah.
We have one.
Yeah. I don't have one of those, but it puts you in that position. So if you're familiar with the squatty potty
I could see
position,
Zach owning one.
Actually,
Very
believe
like
it or
him.
not, that was Jenna's idea.
You do have one then.
Oh, yeah.
See? you just ooze the type.
Yeah. No, I feel like I am the type, but I don't actually use it most of the time. Anyways. Damn it, I keep having questions and then we get on tangents and I completely blank on what I want to say. So here's one. Do you have strong thoughts on the value of static versus dynamic movements? So the constantly transitioning between movements versus holding something for a long period of time?
I think it depends on your goals and it depends on your body. If you are someone who maybe hasn't done a lot of movement, sometimes I think the fire of a vinyasa practice that moves you through a flow more quickly can help kind of ignite something. Or if you are someone who is extremely active, there can be a lot of benefit to a yin practice where you go and you have a ton of props and you get into a position and you stay there for 2 to 5 minutes and you're just gently allowing your body to find that. I think it really depends on what you need. It's hard for me to make sweeping statements because what works for me won't work for you, won't work for Chance, won't work for, you got to find out what you're looking for.
So I went to a yoga class once. I feel like, every teacher obviously does different things, but this one teacher one time, she let us lay down for the last 5 minutes of class. And there were candles. It was nice. It was 8 p.m. But she signed off with the brightest light in me, thanks the brightest light in you. Do you have a go-to yoga sign off? One of those super...
Your Hallmark card?
I don't know how to describe the phrase, but one of those types of phrases.
There is. So that's actually super common. The light within me sees the light within you.
Maybe that's what she said.
Anyone can use a phrasing.
It's been years. I just was did you think of that?
It's just, that's kind of the namaste or the I see you. It is just an acknowledgement that we have been in a class together. And that's you asked about the teaching earlier. That's one of the teaching things is the beginning and the end. Bringing people in. So I have said those words. I know they sound super woo, but in the moment when everyone's waking up again, it definitely is something. I also have recently over quarantine did some meditations where we talked about light energy. Oh man, I'm sounding so woo. Oh man,
I'm into it.
This is what you signed up for, right?
Light energy and how I talked about earlier, the going to sleep and relaxing each one. You can also apply colors and feelings and light to that. So if you have, just say imagine a light in your mind and choose a color to go with that light. So anything you want, whatever that color is speaking to you, just have that, hold that in your mind, and now start at your feet and imagine that light is warm and it begins to wash over your body.
Does it matter what color? Because how red's kind of a hostile color and purple's a royal and yellow's sunny.
So absolutely not. There are colors that correlate to chakras. So red is actually your grounding chakra. So if there's a theory that says whatever comes to mind, if it's one of the 7 chakra colors, that may be one that you're seeking. So if red comes to mind, because it sounds like that might have been the first thing you thought of.
No, it was blue.
Right. So that could be I
was thinking of telling Leah to turn the lights blue.
that means you might be seeking more grounding. These are just theories. I mean, I don't even myself, I don't know if it's all true or if your favorite color is just blue. You know?
Yeah. Wait,
like,
what's the blue one mean?
I believe, if I'm correct, that is your third eye. I could be wrong. I'm mixing them up in my head now because I'm
so
on
does
pressure.
Horoscopes.
We're very much putting you on the spot.
I was like,
I just like want a custom horoscope. What's gonna happen?
I didn't bring my books with me and prepare for this, as Zach already talked about. And I assumed it was backpacking.
This is always how it goes. We have questions. I don't even think we've touched one of them yet.
I saw the word yoga on there.
That's true. Good point.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you mentioned that yoga, the main tenet of it is actually meditation. Mm-hmm. If you are more conscious of your breathing on trail as a result of practicing yoga.
Definitely. I also now am a crazy person that you hear doing weird breathing on trail.
Oh, do you make those noises where they're like...
I sigh a lot.
One of the things,
I mean, it's a sigh. I'm glad everyone just heard me breathe deeply into the microphone. I'm sure they loved it.
This is fun for me. Is this fun for you?
We have more beer, by the way. If it's not, we can make it fun.
I also flutter my lips a lot.
What does that sound like?
No, you can do it. Show me.
I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
Just pretend you're a horse.
I can't do that without
Let's go. Hold on 1 second.
No, that's Zach's turn. I'm not doing it.
What do you mean Zach's turn? Johns, go ahead.
No.
Flutter your lips like a horsey. Do it. Do it for the people. Do it for the people. Fax is very disappointed, by the way.
I can't do it while I'm laughing. I can't breathe now.
Now we're having fun.
Oh, and I definitely don't tell people to flutter their lips like horses in class. Oh, Lord. No one's ever going to come to my class again.
Yeah.
This is it. This is how my yoga career
Horse
ends.
facts. Johns is a terrible horse.
I can't do that while laughing because the cheeks go out, but the lips need to go in.
Those are conflicting muscle movements for sure.
Yes, I feel conflicted.
So breathing. So you're fluttering your lips on trail. You're moaning,
sighing, making loud open mouth sighs. I'm sure if you've been to yoga, they probably will say that. Like, there's also one called lion's breath where you should do this one.
What's it sound like?
She was the horse, you can be the lion.
I'm technically a little donkey girl, but okay.
Yeah, you are.
Oh man, you inhale through your nose. Then when you exhale, take your tongue all the way out, big exhale like a dog.
I felt good. I feel better now.
So large and out, tongue comes all the way out. Yeah. And it's all of it is just like a big release. So if I am feeling stressed, I get anxious or nervous on trail, or not really nervous, but I think like if you're going up a really hard hill, or I get in my head about like miles or where I wanted to be or where I thought I was going to be, or, oh, I'm running out of water. And suddenly I need to just get out of my head. You'll find me sighing, fluttering my lips, doing these things just to reset my brain. All of it is a meditative practice done in a physical form.
Yeah. And there's actually good science to support that, like the tempo of the breathing actually activates different parts of your central nervous system. So if I'm correct, I probably am butchering this, longer inhales will elicit the sympathetic response, which is like an activation mode that fires adrenaline. Whereas if you do longer exhales, like a 3-second inhale and then like a 8-second exhale, that'll activate the parasympathetic part of the central nervous system. And that's a relaxing thing. So like if you're trying to go to bed, you want longer exhales.
Where do you pick up all this info?
This is a lot from, again, I've mentioned this podcast quite a bit, but the Huberman Lab is brilliant. I love it.
It's crazy that you remember all the words.
If you listen to it, for me, it takes a dozen times of listening to it before it'll actually stick. And I probably butchered it. I'm sure I'll get emails about like you actually had that backwards or nothing you said was correct.
It sounds smart when you say it.
It feels smart, but I don't know if it's smart.
Okay.
I think you can also just use it to lower your heart rate. So you don't need to know the technical terms behind it, but you know if you're walking uphill and you're starting to breathe hard like everyone does, and then you start to almost hyperventilate because you're breathing so hard, if you slow down and get mindful about your breath and kind of like Zach said, start, taking your inhales through your nose and then the long, slow exhale through your mouth, your heart rate will naturally drop. Like it will just go down. I'm not saying you're going to go from like 160 to 42, but you might drop to a place where you just feel more comfortable. And it's especially for me when I stop, I feel like my heart rate as like when I'm climbing and it climbs, and then if I like have to abandon the climb and stop on the way up, my heart rate seems to go super hard, or I'm suddenly super aware of it. It's what I will do to move myself out of that, like, oh God, my heart's beating so hard. Like, bring it back down.
Can you talk about the interface with breathing techniques and managing anxiety? Because I feel like for me, meditation and breathing has been transformational for me, because I was definitely much more on the anxious end of the spectrum, and I now feel like I have a tool to get out of it when I'm starting to get in my head. Just focusing on my breathing, I feel like I can get back to normal pretty quickly. Have you had a similar experience?
Yes. I'm also one of those people that counts when I get anxious. I don't even actually know where I picked this up, but it works really well with breath work. Like the counting to 10 thing, I'm sure people have I probably learned it somewhere in therapy in one of the many years I've been in therapy, like counting to 10 to calm yourself down. You can apply that to breath work, doing like a box breathing or 4-part breathing, which is where you count your inhales. So you inhale through your nose and you count to, you can start with like 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, whatever number you find is comfortable, or you can, pranayama breath, you start to really build on that and do long holds. But say like you inhale for 6, then you hold your breath for the same 6 beats, then you exhale for 6 beats, then you hold with nothing, like I consider it holding at the bottom for 6 beats, and then build again. And so I'm making this motion with my hand that no one can see.
Like 12 people.
Oh, right,
see.
yes.
Yeah, we have fancy lights now.
Check us out on YouTube.
Even that, I'm like still just like chopping at the table. That's just not how I teach. But when I'm teaching, I'll actually like lift. Usually your eyes are closed, but I lift my hand up for the inhale. I think of it as moving across for the hold, and then down for the exhale, and then back across to complete the box for that holding on the exhale. Usually it's the holding on the exhale that everyone suddenly realizes they're holding their breath.
Yeah.
Like that's the one where you're like, but then you really get that nice full breath on your next round. If you do it enough, you'll get a little high.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be really good for intense focus, because I think it's something that they teach to Navy SEALs actually, is the box breathing technique. Where were we? I feel heavily distracted today.
I don't think we're anywhere on the page.
Okay, we're nowhere to be found. So I wanted to know about, so you're talking about managing your anxiety through breathing. Is there like one resource or tool that has been especially helpful for you in terms of learning different techniques to managing anxiety? Somebody listening to this who tends to be on the anxious side, like if they came to you as a friend and were looking for advice, what would you tell them?
And so, I was trying to think. There's, the first thing that came to mind, so I might as well just say it. Molly Crossman, my mentor, is the person who has taught me a lot of this. I learned it in school, but she is the one that has like sat with me for the past 6 months every single Thursday morning, and we go through these things. And like I said, she's an exceptional teacher. She's in Wild Bliss on Instagram. So for me, at least, that's the first thing that comes to mind. I know that's not a book. I know, and she does remote stuff, of course, because she lives in New York. But so that is accessible to at least some people. As far as books like Wheels of Life, I found very helpful. I don't have anyone specifically. I've been meaning to read Breath and all these other things, but I don't have any off the top of my head. I'm sure I will walk out of here and think of like 1,000 good resources that I could have said, and then I wasn't prepared. I was not prepared for this.
There's no way to prepare for this.
Yeah, this was an ambush. I wasn't even.
No one prepared for anything. Okay, we can get off the yoga breathing subject, because I know we put you very much on the spot. So it was just a quick 30 minutes, I think. Let's go back into the chronology of your Triple Crowndom. Did you feel like there were major themes that you took away from each of the big 3 hikes? So like obviously the AT was your discovery for backpacking. You said within the first week you knew like you were in the right place. Were there different chapters or maybe stages of evolution for you? I know you said that you're not going to find, like, the light's not necessarily going to go on for people during a through hike, but were there different revelations for you in each of these 3 hikes?
Yeah, like the AT taught me how to backpack. I learned how to backpack. I learned about, gear, what my body likes, food. I learned that, like, I don't feel good when I eat Pop-Tarts, but it's like everyone eats Pop-Tarts. Like, I learned all of those lessons. I learned 1,000 hard lessons. I learned so much. Like the things that everyone learns on their first hike that most people learn when they go on 1 and 2 week backpacking trips, I decided to do on a 2,200 mile hike. Don't be me, prepare, do things. And I learned a lot of hard lessons. I learned obviously a lot about myself and pushing myself. I remember crying after my first 12-mile day. And now that like barely scratches the surface whenever I go, like now starting a hike, I start with 20s. But at the time I, was proud of myself when I did a 7, an 8, and a 9 mile day. And I remember that. And I think back on that now whenever I'm like, oh God, I only did 30 miles. I could have done like more. And I'm like, I'm an idiot. It doesn't matter. So the AT taught me those lessons for sure, like to be humble, to listen to your body. I got very, very injured through all of the mistakes that I made, and I learned a lot. So it was a harsh teacher, but I also fell in love with it. So it took and gave, like blood, sweat, and tears, and I would not really have changed any of it. And then the PCT tried to kill me multiple times. You were there for one of them.
Yeah, it was, the snowstorm. Yeah.
You were farther along in that cozy little bathroom while I was at 10,000 feet dying, literally.
What happened here?
If you are familiar with Backpacker Radio's earlier episodes, like
Chance wasn't there.
You weren't even on. You were not in part. Weren't even on that episode.
She took a leave of absence to go.
Oh, I thought you were making a joke.
I think I was. We've probably talked about this. It was definitely one of the early episodes with Java. We got trapped in a snowstorm. I've also told about 1 billion stories, so how dare you not remember this particular one? But I would love to hear it from you.
I was kind of just prompting her to tell her own story, but
same.
Shame on me.
How dare you?
Yes. So while Badger and Jabba were off in their cozy little privy, I had decided to wait out the storm. We were on the PCT context. Hold on, I'll step back 3 seconds. We were on the PCT. It is 2017. It was an extremely high snow year. I had already done a flip-flop because I got swept down a stream, and it was the right choice for me. People disagree with that. That is perfectly okay. But I had gone...
Was this in the Sierra?
In the Sierra, right below Forester Pass is where I got swept. So then I went north, like about 500 miles, and then I hiked to Washington. Then I flipped back down and started going southbound. So that was when I ran into these guys. That was actually how I met Zach. And I started going southbound, thinking that was a much better time to be in the Sierra because there were no snowstorms. However, it was getting late in September. I was in my last resupply between Mammoth and Bishop. If you've done the PCT, you're probably familiar. It's a pretty long, heavy section with the bear can. You go over many high passes. You're going over like Muir Pass and all those really famous, absolutely gorgeous passes. So I had gotten kind of separated from our little impromptu trail family. And I decided, you know what? I'm already not with the people. There's no use in trying to catch them. It started snowing one morning, and I was like, I'll just wait. I'll wait the snowstorm out. I'll ration my food. This is the wise choice. So I waited till about noon, and the light snow was just light snow. And then it stopped altogether.
And to give a little additional context, sorry to interrupt, but like, we know this because we've done it, but when you're in the Sierra, you don't get updated forecasts. This was not a thing that was expected at all. See a little bit of snow was shocking. To see what it would turn into was like way worse.
I remember all of us had been responsible. We checked the weather before we left. Nothing was in the forecast. You make the plan. You bring extra food. Like, we had done all the right steps. I remember I had actually brought an emergency poncho, which will play in factors in a second. And I had extra thermals and all this extra stuff that I really thought I didn't need, to the point to where my pack broke. My strap flew off, and I was like, oh, well, I guess this is what I'm dealing with. I had to lash it back together with stuff I had in my pack and walked with it all messed up for the last
And
bit.
the bear canister does not help that situation.
The bear can sitting on top of my pack was just making everything absolutely worse.
Yeah.
And So I really didn't think this was a big deal. I saw that everything had blown over. Bluebird Day. At that point, it's like warmish for the Sierra. And I start walking. I was like, I'll do one pass today. I was planning on doing 2. It's like, I'll do one pass. I'll drop down to the other side of the mountain, and then I'll just, camp again at like 6 or whatever. No big deal. I think I was planning to do like 10 miles was my aggressive day from like noon to 6 was like, maybe I'll cover 10 miles. Excuse me. And, I started walking, and at that point, I think the pass was around 11,000 feet. I remember it was like above 10,000 feet. I'm blanking on what the name of that pass is right there. You might remember.
And guessing you were probably near Mather Pass if you were a pass behind us.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
That makes sense.
Because we ended that snow day doing Pinchot. What was it? No, maybe it was Pinchot Mather.
Yes.
No, Pinchot Glen Kearsarge. I think that was the sequence.
I think it was Pinchot maybe that I was on. Now I'm blanking. I'm forgetting.
Yeah.
It's because my brain didn't do very well. There's reasons I forgot things because that I cared far less about what the pass was called and far more about not dying. So as I was ascending,
by yourself.
I was by myself. As I was ascending, it starts getting colder, and I had tripped and fell in a stream because I am clumsy and I should be good by walking now, but I'm not. And so I tripped and fell in a stream and got my shirt all wet, and then the bottom of my pants and my shoes all wet. And I was like, oh, well, this sucks. Well, I'll go up the mountain and dry it out. There's not anything else I can do. I can't be unwet now. So just series of terrible little incidents as I go up. And then eventually when I look down, like the snow is starting to come in again. I'm seeing it come over. I know I have the choice to turn around and run back. Now me would have made that choice, would have turned around and actually gone back down the mountain if I had known what was on the other side.
Yeah, sure.
But at the time, of course, I didn't know what was on the other side. I thought the other side of the mountain is out of the bowl where the storm is that's on top of me. I thought if I go back, I'm just going to keep going into this storm that's getting worse and building. If I go forward, and there was no like lightning or anything, it's just snow and cold. I'll go up, over, and down. I'll go out of the storm. This is the safer choice. This is the smarter choice. It was not the safer, smart choice. As I went up, my shirt froze, my gloves froze, my pants froze from about the knee down, and then my shoes started to freeze on my feet.
Do you have an emergency beacon with you?
I had a spot, yes.
Yeah.
They only work when the sky is clear. So that's useless.
The irony, yeah.
So I know that this is a problem. And at this point, I'm like, okay, if I just keep pushing and get up and over, I was correct. I did get to the pass, get on the other side, and there was no storm there. It had moved on. It really was kind of in the bowl, and I'd moved through it. So it had like crossed over Zach onto me and then moved past. And then I was like, I'll just keep going. I'll get as low as I can possibly go. I'll find the lowest point on the trail or off the trail, and then I'll camp there and everything will be fine. Until I got to a river that because of the storm had started like super overflowing. And I knew, I was like, if I get in the water, I won't make it out. Like, not that I couldn't cross it. I could probably cross it, but I had to ford it. And the risk of getting myself wet from the waist down wasn't worth it. And I was like, I'm not coming back from that. I won't get warm again. So I ended up only being able to descend about 1,000 feet from the top of the peak. So I set up my tent like on top of snow next to like the 2 shrubs that I found, like, because I felt nice being near trees. And I set up there, and that was the only time I've ever considered pressing my emergency beacon. But I knew I could look around, that the cloud cover was too thick, and that like one of 2 things would happen. Either I would freeze to death and die, and I wouldn't make it, or I would press the button and they could, I guess, confine me. But no one was coming till the morning. Like, I knew that. And you have to know when you have those beacons, like, it's not like calling 911 in a city where within 5 minutes or whatever, like someone's going to show up. You were on a remote mountain pass in the High Sierra, likely without service. So I knew I was kind of on my own. And so I just started. Luckily, I had taken one of those Knowles classes that I never thought would be useful and was super useful. There was all these lessons in there about hypothermia and like what to do and how to warm yourself. And I remember trying to like drink and eat something, but then like I couldn't. I was like throwing it up because I was so far gone. I listened to a podcast, which sounds counterintuitive. Hopefully no one's listening to this and dying right now.
Please don't be dying.
But it kept my brain active. It kept me awake and kept me from just laying there and just being like, well, I guess I'll die now. It forced my brain to think. I listened to Science Friday. Thanks, Science Friday. Keeping me alive. And but it kept my brain active. And then I moved around a lot, keeping my body heat up. I tried to drink water until my water all froze solid because it was well below freezing. So all my water froze in the bottles. Luckily, I had poured some into my pot for the morning so I could actually heat it up. But my stove quit working because at 10,000 feet in the cold, fuel doesn't work anymore. So I couldn't even get it to light. So I was also out of that. And then so I just did sit-ups. I rolled around in my bag to generate as much heat as possible. I took my... everything I had in my pack I was wearing that wasn't wet. And then I took my bag liner. I have a pack with a liner in it. And I put that around my feet. And then I also had an emergency poncho that I had kept on lock. And I wrapped myself in that plastic emergency blanket. And I remember that was the moment that I felt the temperature in my bag warm to a normal level, a human level. And I knew, I was like, okay, if I just stay in here and I don't get out, I will warm up. And I did.
Did you sleep through the night?
No.
Are you getting up in the middle of the night to do sit-ups?
Yeah, I have no idea the intervals of time. I know that I fell asleep probably around 3 or 4 because I think that was around the last time that I checked my watch, but I was properly warmed enough in my bag that I felt okay closing my eyes to fall asleep. And then I woke up at 6 when the sun came up and it was getting warmer because at that point it had to be getting warmer outside. I don't think I was doing anything magical. It was just getting warmer because the sun was coming up and things were getting better.
Yeah. Did most of the snow melt that next day? So we got off the mountain early, so I don't know what was happening at high elevations. What was it like hiking that next day?
Yeah, I hiked that next day, and by the time I got to the next pass, which I think was Mather Pass, and I know by the time when I got to Kearsarge, so I ended up staying on trail a day longer than I had anticipated. And when I went up and over Kearsarge, it was 70 and sunny outside. People were there with their kids and families, and I just sobbed. I was like, I almost died, and now it's sunny. Why is that okay?
Yeah. Well, no, that was also the end of your through hike there. That was emotional for a lot of reasons.
I cried a lot that day, and then drank a lot of beer in town.
Yeah. I don't know if Shab and I have gotten into that story, but I was a real wreck that night.
Why?
I don't know. We can go there, but
what type of wreck?
I was found out on the sidewalk outside of the bar. We
that type of wreck.
Yeah, we decided to take an impromptu zero, and things happen when you're taking a zero and you're excited to not be in a snowstorm. And also, Bishop is possibly the coolest town along the PCT. So yeah, things just kind of snowballed. But
I got locked out of the hostel, and I was getting some friends of ours that are now still friends of mine. I had met, they were doing the high route and they bailed because of the snow as well. I stopped to get their phone numbers so I could meet up with them at or Instagrams or something in the future. And I'm way too many cores in, drunkenly drunkenly putting the phone number in, thanks guys, have a good night. I walk up to the hostel and I try to open the door and it's locked, and they didn't give me the code. And because I was supposed to sleep in this shed because the hostel was full and they told me I could sleep in their shed. I was like, well, can I at least put my pack inside here so it's not just sitting in the outdoors? I don't want to carry it to the bar. And they're like, yeah, no problem. So I couldn't get my pack, and it was going to get really cold that night. I was like, I'm not going out this way, not in town. And I called Zach, I called Tom, I called Dirt Squirrel, I called all the 3 people I know in the hostel repeatedly, and they're all just phones off, phone dead, gone to voicemail, on airplane mode, all asleep in the 3 minutes it took me to get someone's phone number. They're gone, and no one's no one will answer the door.
People are not reliable at 2 a.m. as it turns out.
Yeah, and I was like, oh no. So I ended up sleeping in the back of our friend's truck with them. They were on the road sleeping in their truck, and I snuggled my little self in there. Was like, hi, I'm part of your family now, and slept in the back of a pickup truck.
Yeah.
Neat. I want to jump back to something that we grazed over, which was what caused you to flip. You said you got swept down a river in the Sierra. as someone who also did the PCT in 2017 and flipped because of what I was hearing about the rivers in the Sierra and stories from people who got swept down, I would like to hear that story because those have been very interesting stories that I've heard.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. I knew already by the time I was going through it that things were bad. So I actually, I guess I'm going to show a hand here. I forded the Cannonbeck on the AT, which technically you're not supposed to do. So once again, don't be me.
Yeah.
Shh, I didn't do it.
Nobody's
actually.
perfect. Although we have a segment for you later in the show, that'll be perfect for her.
Yeah. So I did that, and don't be me. Don't do that. Take the boat. Do the things. But it didn't work out for me, so I forded it. So I had felt pretty confident in my fording skills because I'd forded a bunch in Maine. I'd forded the Cannonbeck. I swim a lot. I swim every week. I was like, yeah, everything's going to be totally fine. This is my forte. I love water. I'm not worried about this at all. That it was like definitely my Achilles heel by going in confident thinking that I could just ford rivers that I had no business fording. And pretty much I had a hiking partner at the time that we'd met on trail. We didn't start together, but we decided to do the Sierra together to be safe and all that stuff. But when we were crossing, we didn't decide to cross. It was Tyndall Creek, which is like a seasonal stream. Like this year, it's probably dry. We decided to cross, and he was a lot bigger and taller and honestly stronger than me. And he went to cross, and then he got across. And I realized that I went like halfway out, abandoned it, and went back and was like, no, this is way too strong. I can't cross. I need to find somewhere else. And then him and a few other people were like, no, just come on, you're fine. Like, we all got across. And they're all like significantly larger and stronger than me.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'5".
Okay.
I'm not particularly petite, but the river was stronger than me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it came up over my knees, and I found that that's part of where it is. When when it's a river's over my knees, it's so much harder for me to get my footing and the strength.
That's an actual thing. You start to lose your stability when it goes past your knees.
Yeah. And
sorry, there you go.
Or just so, yeah, for me, it was up. It wasn't over my hips, but it was up to that thigh, and it was just enough that it was hitting me in all the wrong places where I was like really, really unstable.
Mm-hmm. That's what I heard when I got to Lone Pine. Like there were guys we had been hiking with that hitched back down to like get their mail or something. And they were telling us like it was up to their thighs. And I was just standing next to them, like looking at their thighs and like going down and like seeing it's my belly button. And it was just like, I don't want to die. And that was kind of like the ominous feeling of like, you're 5'1", you have no business in there. Yeah. So the river stories like freak me out in a way where it's like, I want to hear them because it makes me feel good about my decision, but also it's just like wild.
Yeah. So I went out, I went across once, decided no, kind of got like told, yeah, you can do it. And like, they were coming from a place of kindness. They weren't, they were saying, we all got across, you can do this, like just come across. So I did. And I got out to kind of like the middle-ish where it was like stronger, thick, like deeper. I don't know how deep it was at that point. And then, I had that moment where I remember I think I said, oh no. And I just felt my feet slip out from underneath me. I don't know if I stepped on a rock. I have no idea what the catalyst moment was because I did actually feel stable and strong. I was shaky because like, the water shakes your poles. If you've ever forded, it starts to shake them really bad. That was going on, but I thought I was okay until the exact moment that I was not okay. And then I got swept down and luckily, I didn't go very far because the water pushed me back to the bank. And then I looked out the corner of my eye and I turtled. I like flipped on my back. And I did have my pack on and I did not abandon my pack. I'm sure people will get mad and say that I should ditch my pack or whatever. I understand. All of these were bad choices. Let me predicate by saying that. I did keep my pack on. I had my chest strap clipped, but not my hip belt. If I wanted to abandon it, I could, but I didn't want to lose my pack in the Sierra and die from all the other reasons. Yeah. I made choices. So I swept down, I turtled, I was on my back. Luckily, my pack didn't drag me down or anything. It kept pushing me down. I saw some branches into my left, and I grabbed them, and that was part of where some of my injuries came from because it jerked my shoulder really hard, but I was able to roll over on my belly and then sit up, and I was kind of on this middle little almost like a sandbar. It was because the river had breached the bank so many times. There was a bunch of false banks. So I was sitting on that, and I definitely sat up, turned around and just cried.
So you're stuck on an island in the middle of it now?
No, it was shallow next to me where so I could go back, but I sobbed because I realized it pushed me to the wrong bank.
Oh, no.
That I had not crossed the stream.
Start over.
I had to go back. And now I am soaked head to toe in freezing water. Like ice was hitting me in the water.
Yeah. Well, do you remember what was going through your head when you're getting washed down the stream?
Save myself. 100% survival. I don't think words were in my head. It wasn't like normal thought. It was all like, save myself, save myself, save myself. Like I was probably like more or less what I was thinking without saying the words in my head was keep your head above water. Like no matter what I was thinking, keep my head above water. That was the only thing that was running through my mind was that I could not drown.
So when you get back to you could put your question in if it's an in between this one, but when you get back to the shore, do you try to cross again or do you turn around?
So at that point, I had no idea what to do. I came back up and around and was standing there. My friends were like, cross again. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm shaking. I'm a mess. And as I sit there and like contemplate my life, another trail family shows up that I had met before. They had a super strong, super smart approach. They saw how strong it was. I told them that, myself and other people had all scouted and this appeared to be the best place to cross. I should say we were like at least a mile off the trail. We had not crossed where the trail was. We had found what we considered to be a slower, more shallow place to cross. So we had made those pre-decisions before I ever even attempted the first one. And they kind of came to the same conclusions. That was how they found their way there. Like these people showed up because they too had gone off trail and said, this looks like the best place. And then we linked up into pairs. So there was a couple guys that were really, really strong in water, had forded a lot. One of them's a rafting guide now. Like they knew what they were doing. They crossed first. One of them crossed first and stayed kind of near like the strongest part, just on the outside of it. So that way he was there to help people cross. Then the rest of us crossed in pairs with like a short person and a tall person. So it was like I crossed with a guy I had never met before until that very moment, but he was big and strong. And they were like, hey, you cross with her. This looks like a good pairing. And it was like night and day crossing. We crossed together. We communicated the whole time. Like I'm moving my left foot. We're stepping our, individual feet. So we were a 4-footed beast with all our arms linked through one another, each holding poles. I think I was holding his middle pole with my left hand. I had one pole at the time, and I had in my right hand was my pole, and he had his 2 poles, and we were like all linked together, and it made us really, really strong. And then as we got to like one of the fast parts, his foot slipped, and he lost his balance, and I didn't. So I just stood there as strong as I could possibly, at least like every single muscle in my body. And he slipped, regained his footing, and stood back up. And I was like, this is what would have happened if I had crossed with someone on the first try. I would have lost my footing. They would have caught me. I would have stood back up, and we would have kept crossing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I learned that is actually, just a normal way. People do that in bigger pairs than twos. They can do it 5, 6, 7s where you just link yourselves across and then pull everyone through. And that was what we did essentially. And then everyone else crossed in pairs from there. And then my friend on the end kind of grabbed everybody. And I got when I got to him, he just like tossed me on the bank and we all got across.
I will say the PCTA has a good page on their website that goes through like some of the different configurations you can do with a group. Like it'll give you configurations if there's 2 of you. It'll show you like options if there's 3 people. And then like if there's larger groups, like I remember there was like, if you think about geese flying in a V, and it'll tell you like put the stronger people